Every single morning, countless dog owners step outside expecting a peaceful walk, and within seconds, they're being dragged down the street by a dog half their size. The leash tightens, their arm strains, and no matter how many times they say no, nothing changes. The dog pulls harder, chasing every smell, every movement, every distraction, while the owner follows behind, frustrated, exhausted, and completely out of control. It feels like a battle you keep losing, day after day. But here's the truth most people never hear. The problem isn't your dog. It's the way we unknowingly teach them, every single walk. Without realizing it, we're reinforcing the very behavior we want to stop. So if you feel like you're the one being walked instead of the other way around, you're not alone. And the good news? And this can change completely once you understand what's really happening. One of the biggest misunderstandings dog owners have is believing that their dog pulls on the leash to dominate them. This idea has been repeated so often that it feels true, but it's not. Dogs are not trying to take control of you or challenge your authority during a walk. They are simply doing what works. I used to believe that dogs needed to be controlled, that pulling was a sign of disobedience or stubbornness. But the reality is much simpler and more important. Dogs respond to outcomes, not intentions. If pulling gets them closer to what they want, the smell, the park, another dog, then pulling becomes the obvious choice. They're not being difficult, they're being effective. This is where everything begins to change. Instead of asking, "And how do I make my dog listen to me?" A better question is, what is my dog learning from me right now? Because whether you realize it or not, every walk is a lesson, and your dog is always paying attention to what works. At the core of leash pulling is a simple behavioral rule. Dogs repeat what works. Every time your dog pulls forward and you follow, even reluctantly, you are reinforcing that behavior. In your dog's mind, the sequence is clear. Pull to move forward to reach something interesting. That outcome is the reward. It doesn't matter if you're frustrated, tired, or saying no over and over again. What matters is that pulling gets results. And once a behavior consistently produces a reward, it becomes a habit. I've come to realize something that changed the way I see every walk. Every step you take while your dog is pulling is like telling them, "Yes, that's exactly what I want you to do." Not with your words, but with your actions. This is why so many owners feel stuck, because they're unknowingly strengthening the very behavior they're trying to stop. The most important shift you can make is understanding that your dog doesn't learn from what you say nearly as much as from what actually happens. Outcomes teach, results shape behavior. One of the most common mistakes dog owners make when dealing with leash pulling is trying to fight it with force. Pulling back on the leash, scolding, or giving quick leash corrections. It feels instinctive in the moment, like you're trying to regain control. But in reality, these reactions often make the problem worse. When you pull against a dog that's already pulling, you trigger something called the opposition reflex, a natural response that causes the dog to pull harder against resistance without even thinking. At the same time, the tension, frustration, and physical struggle increase the dog's level of arousal. And an aroused dog doesn't slow down. They become more intense, more reactive, and even less likely to respond to you. I've learned this the hard way. The more you try to control a dog through strength, the more control you actually lose. What feels like discipline to us often just adds fuel to the fire for them. The real shift happens when you stop trying to overpower your dog and start changing the rules of the interaction. And don't try to win against your dog with force. Change the game so pulling no longer works at all. Everything changes when you commit to one simple but powerful rule. Pulling must never move your dog forward. Not sometimes, not most of the time, never. This is the principle that reshapes the entire walking experience. The moment your dog learns that a tight leash leads to zero progress, the behavior begins to lose its purpose. From my experience, the turning point isn't a special technique or a perfect command. It's the moment you apply this rule with complete consistency. That's when things finally start to click. But consistency is where most people struggle. It only takes one moment of giving in. One time you let your dog pull you toward something to undo the lesson you've been building. To your dog, that single success is proof that pulling still works. So if you want real, lasting change, you have to be clear and unwavering. No mixed signals, no exceptions. Because in your dog's world, clarity is everything, and consistency is what creates it. Step 1 begins with something most people overlook: the equipment you use. The right tools are not about controlling your dog. They're about creating the conditions for the right behavior to happen naturally. A front clip harness paired with a fixed-length leash changes the entire dynamic of the walk by removing your dog's mechanical advantage when they pull. Instead of allowing them to drive forward with full force, it gently redirects their movement back toward you. This isn't punishment. It's clarity. In my experience, trying to fix leash pulling with the wrong equipment is like trying to solve the right problem with the wrong rules. It creates frustration for both you and your dog. If you truly want progress, invest in the right setup from the beginning. Don't expect behavior to change if the environment keeps reinforcing the same mistake. Step 2 is the foundation of the entire system. Stop and stand. The moment the leash becomes tight, you stop completely. No talking, no pulling back, no cues. You simply become still. This is the part where most people give up, because it feels slow, repetitive, and even pointless at first. But in reality, this is where the breakthrough is being built. Your dog is learning, moment by moment, that pulling no longer works. From my experience, this is the stage people quit right before the results begin to show. It requires absolute patience and a willingness to move at your dog's pace, not your own expectations. Some walks may feel incredibly slow, even frustrating, but that slowness is the process. If you can stay consistent here, this is where the magic truly starts to happen. Step 3 is the change of direction. Instead of always stopping, you begin to turn and walk the opposite way the moment the leash goes tight. No warning, no command, just a calm, decisive pivot. When you become slightly unpredictable, you instantly become more interesting in your dog's eyes. They can no longer assume where the walk is going, which naturally brings their attention back to you. And attention is the foundation of connection. In my experience, many dogs pull simply because they've learned they're in charge of direction. This step gently shifts that dynamic. You be proactive in creating moments where your dog chooses to follow you. Don't let the walk be led by impulse. Lead it with intention. Step 4 is rewarding the right behavior. A dog that stops pulling doesn't automatically understand what you want instead. That's why reinforcement matters. Every time your dog walks with a loose leash, even for a few seconds, mark it and reward it. From my experience, this is the missing piece for many owners. They focus on stopping the wrong behavior but forget to build the right one. Always teach, not just correct. When you consistently reward the behavior you want, your dog doesn't just avoid pulling, they begin to understand how to walk with you. Real-life situations are where this system is truly tested. When another dog appears and your dog suddenly surges forward, and this is not the moment to give in, it's the moment to stay consistent. Create distance if needed, but never allow pulling to succeed. There will also be days when your dog seems to regress and starts pulling again. That's normal. Learning is not linear. From my experience, setbacks don't mean failure. They're part of the process. What matters is how you respond. Go back to basics, simplify the environment, and reinforce more frequently. Another common challenge is inconsistency between handlers. If one person allows pulling while another doesn't, the dog quickly learns when it can get away with it. Training doesn't fail because of the dog. It fails because of inconsistency in people. Control the environment where you can, and make sure everyone handling the dog follows the same rules. And consistency is what turns training into lasting behavior. In the end, every behavior your dog shows is a message. It's communication. Leash pulling isn't defiance. It's feedback about what your dog has learned works. When you start to see it that way, everything shifts. Your dog doesn't need a stronger owner. It needs a more understanding one. From my perspective, a walk is not just a training session. It's a silent conversation between two different species trying to understand each other. And the quality of that conversation depends on how clearly you guide it. When you change the way you lead, you're not just changing behavior. You're reshaping the relationship itself. You're building trust, clarity, and connection with every step. So if you recognize yourself in this, don't overthink it. You don't need a perfect plan, just a new start. Begin again on your very next walk, and let that be the moment everything starts to change.